I was shocked to learn my disability was being exploited on a porn site. It was 2016 and we were celebrating my husband's birthday and Thanksgiving with his family. We decided to call. We were close to our home when our car hit a big puddle and hydroplaned. It flipped 3 times. At the hospital, they determined that I had fractured my vertebra at C6, which punctured my spinal cord, leaving me paralyzed from the waist down with limited finger function and 1 working bicep. I spent the next. A part of me had hoped that life would go back to normal once I got home, but I quickly learned that there was no such thing. Even the simplest of a post shared by Laura Grace Beck at Honest Quad on January 4, 2018 at 11:53 a.m. PST. There were times I felt extremely frustrated with my body and even developed serious body dysmorphia. I would think of these are still things I still struggle with today, but with a lot of patience and time, luckily, I've come to understand that regardless of what I can and can't physically feel, I am still a whole person. One of the things that really helped me get to that point was using Instagram to connect with other people, including those who share similarities to my experience and new condition. I was quickly being the best version of myself became my priority, and I slowly learned that my disability didn't need to hold me back from doing what I love. Related a post shared by Laura Grace Beck at Honest Quad on May 13, 2019 at 1:58 p.m. PDT. Before my accident, I lived a pretty active life. While I can no longer, I started getting dozens of messages from people every day asking how I became self-sufficient in certain tasks and how I was able to maintain a positive mindset. I appreciated, as with anyone who starts to quickly gain followers on Instagram, I did start receiving messages that I thought were strange. They were mostly, after talking to some of my friends on Instagram, I learned that that person was what they call a devotee. Don't know what that is? Neither did I. Turns out, a devotee is someone with a devoted fetish. In my case, a post shared by Laura Grace Beck at Honest Quad on February 26, 2019 at 4:59 a.m. PST. It was a few weeks later when my friend called me to tell me about my videos on Pornhub. I rushed online. Most of these women, myself included, had shared these videos to Instagram to help others struggling with a life-changing injury. While anger and learning that my disability was being fetishized made me realize how much work there is to be done to humanize those within the disabled community. That's why I decided to get involved with Thea and became a part of their campaign. Mission behind See Us is to highlight the realities of living with paralysis. By collecting a post shared by Laura Grace Beck at Honest Quad on April 25, 2019 at 5:15 a.m. PDT. I hope that by sharing my story, we'll get one step closer to a world where people with disabilities are seen as equals. We deserve to be seen as normal and capable of doing anything and everything they put their minds to. We deserve a world.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.